Good afternoon, everyone. I would like to welcome you for today's webinar hosted by Nelson Hospital. I am Beth Sarmiento, your new RMO recruitment consultant. And I just want to inform everyone that this is a recorded webinar. Thus, we will be following three parts of the webinar flow. So first, there will be an employer presentation followed by the RMO presentation. There will be videos to be played, and last part would be the question and answer. For those who have questions, who would like to put in text-based question, they can just use the Q&A function in Zoom. Or for those who are interested to ask questions live, then they can just use the raise hand function in the Zoom. So yes, I will start now, and I would like to turn the floor to our panelists.
Hello, my name is Sam, and this is Rosa and Tommy. I guess we'll kick it off with a nice introduction video of Nelson Marlborough.
Tēnā koutou, no mai.
I came to Nelson 10 years ago with the expectation that I'd spend 6 months to a year here, and now I wouldn't live anywhere else.
Nelson Marlborough gives you a good balance between sort of work life and social life. Nelson Hospital is a good sized hospital to work at. It's a friendly environment, so you actually know a lot of the people in the hospital that you're working with.
There's quite a lot of good relationships between different specialties.
So there's lots of opportunities for you to develop your career however you want to focus it on.
A disadvantage for patients in bigger services is that they can get turned into a set of individual problems without one person really thinking about them as a human being. This is a fantastic environment to actually be able to practice really good medicine because you have the opportunity to look at the person as a whole.
Yeah, it's just easy to get around. So in Sydney, it was always a battle everywhere you wanted to go. And I think that sort of flows on to even the patients. They come into the hospital, they can get a park, and they're quite happy to have a chat, and they're quite relaxed.
Lots of restaurants, beautiful beaches. It's an excellent place to raise a family. I have 2 children now. Schools are fantastic. We couldn't be happier living here. I would say to somebody who was wanting to come and work for Nelson Marlborough that they should do it. It's a great place to work. It's a great place to live. And it's a really enjoyable environment to be in.
It's always funny.
Everything you could ask for.
There's nowhere else in New Zealand I want to live. People come here by choice because it is a fantastic destination, and then they stay because when they realise they've been here for a while, they don't want to leave.
Alrighty, so as I said, my name's Sam, Miss Rosa and Tommy. We'll take you through Nelson Hospital. So Nelson Hospital is sort of one of 2 hospitals in the Nelson Marlborough District Health Board, or sort of subsection of Te Whatu Order. It's a 184 bed hospital, serving a population of sort of about 50,000 people. About 100,000 people. Obviously very close to Blenheim, but also down the sort of west coast, Greymouth, and very close to Wellington across the sea. So has contacts with Otago University, and obviously there's a few medical students there up here, mostly TIs. And yeah, there's a new hospital in the pipeline. Not sure when that will be. Probably Loretta will be able to tell you more about that. But yeah, pretty much sums up Nelson Hospital.
So these are the Nelson Marlborough District Health Board values: respect, innovation, teamwork, and integrity. It'd be good to have a think about these and maybe see how you could apply them in your cover letter.
So in terms of the RMO team, we have 12 PGY1s, 46 house officers total, and we have registrars training and non-training in most specialties except ATNR, I think.
Yeah.
Yep. As a PGY1, you will do general medicine and general surgery. Those are the compulsory runs. And then you have your choice of other surgical and non-surgical specialties, which you can read up there. When you move on to PGY2, you have the opportunity to do the ONG or the PEDS diploma. You can do an ED run, which lasts for 6 months, and community choices, so hospice, GP, community psych, urgent care, depending on what you're interested in. We're a non-urban centre, so you're on the non-urban pay scale, and most runs are category D, I think.
Yeah, except for the relief runs, which some people do in PGY1. Some other things that are sort of added on to your PGY1 and 2 years, admission shifts. That's sort of 1 week every quarter that you'll go down and you sort of work an evening shift per se and help the registrars admit patients and from ED into the wards. I guess there's a reasonable amount of shift flexibility and I think probably Loretta will be able to speak more to this, but sort of the ability to request leave and weekends off in advance. I might let Tommy talk about the backup roster a bit more because I'm not too familiar with it, but basically, well, maybe, yeah.
Yeah, so there's a backup roster available. So there's a house surgeon that puts their name down for that every day of the week. That if the on-call house surgeon is really busy on the ward there, that we're calling a person from home who can come in to help them for the rest of the evening. And you get an extra $50 a day to put your name on this backup roster. So it's a good way to top up the bank account as well.
There's the capacity to also get remote access. So, you know, being able to log on from home if you need to quickly chase up something before you dash out the door. I think this is Te Whatu Ora wide, the 6% matched employer contribution for KiwiSaver, but certainly here in Nelson, that is met. In terms of sort of after hours or weekend commitments, you typically do 1 weekend every 4 weekends. So you end up doing about 3 a quarter. And on that weekend, you might do 1 long day and 1 sort of regular short day. Oftentimes you're either your medical or surgical, or in PGY2, you might do an ONG PEDS combined long day on a weekend, but that's generally reserved for the PGY2s. No, you just do either medical or surgical on the weekends as a PGY1. You also do 1 long day a week, pretty much majority of weeks, probably actually only works out.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it probably works out maybe like 5 or 6.
So you don't do a long day if you're working the weekend. So
Yeah.
Every 1 in every 2 weeks probably.
Yeah, probably 1 in every 2 weeks. And obviously you don't do those when you're doing your 1 week on admission shifts each quarter. And basically that in Nelson, that means that you come in at sort of whatever time you would normally start your working day, and then you hand over at 4 p.m. and the sort of end of the evening shift ends at 10 p.m. So unlike other hospitals where I think it's 11 o'clock. I think other hospitals also run a double long day on the weekends, which it's not done in Nelson, which is a big benefit. Another really nice thing is starting nights after 9 months. Oftentimes you might start up the first quarter, or certainly after your second quarter, but in Nelson nobody starts nights until quarter 4.
We actually get really good house officer teaching in Nelson with weekly sessions from doctors and specialists in the hospital. We get, if you're in medicine, you get teaching every morning, which is actually really good. You have to do a couple of the teaching assessments yourself, which is fine. So we actually learn heaps in the teachings, which is cool. You have to do your ACLS course when you come on. We did a PEDS revision course last week, which will be good because we have to cover that on the nights. But yeah, it's quite a lot of teaching. It's pretty good.
So we'll just play another video now. I can get this going.
My name is Rashani and I'm a PGY1 here at Nelson Hospital. I'm currently working on the AT&R ward, so that's for older person's health.
Hi, my name is Edward Palmer and I'm a first year nurse officer at Nelson Hospital, and currently I'm doing urology.
I was lucky enough to do some of my training intern year here at Nelson Hospital last year. So I did a quarter up here and absolutely loved it. What sort of struck me from day one was just how friendly everyone was here. I guess being a smaller hospital, you get to know everyone by names pretty quickly.
So the RMO office for Nelson Marlborough District Health Board is simply fantastic. I've always had a really positive interaction with them, whether it's something on the roster you might need changed or some leave you want to get. I think that the reputation that this DHB has in that regard is probably the best.
There's only 12 PGY1s and I think roughly about 40 house officers in total. So you get to know your fellow colleagues pretty well inside and outside the hospital.
So despite being a small hospital, I would say that any career opportunity is possible from Nelson, especially if you're interested in practical procedures, anesthetics or surgery. There's a lot of opportunities earlier than in other hospitals to get involved and learn some of those basic things. It also has on its hands more time for the patients, so you can gain your skills as a first year in a more thorough manner. And to add to that, it's in such a beautiful location, it made it hard to resist.
Achieving a work-life balance in a career in medicine is always something that's stressed upon and something that we all want to achieve. And I think in Nelson, just being in this beautiful area that we are, it's sort of handed to you on the plate. There's so many awesome features, great hiking, mountain biking tracks, and there's just so much to do outside of work.
The hospital is well staffed, so you often don't have to work later than expected, and that makes being able to get out there and do what you really love that much easier.
Why we love working in Nelson and why we chose to come here. It's small enough that you get to know everybody, which just leads to such a nice working environment that makes calling other specialties so much easier when you know the person on the end of the phone. Very supportive people. Everyone wants to work here who works here, so they tend to like coming to work, which helps. Because it's a bit smaller, you get great clinical experience, so you are important and there on the rapid responses or the sort of emergency calls, getting exposure to doing procedures. If you're on gen surg, you go to the trauma calls. One of the perks is you also get a free coffee, which is limited to Nelson and Wairau only, so you don't get that at other hospitals, which is such an ideal thing. Easy to get to work, don't have to deal with city traffic, lots of parking. You mainly finish on time, so you seem to get off at around 4 p.m, depending on when you're on call or a few other things, but most of the time people tend to finish at 4. And lovely, lovely patients.
I guess some very few limitations with Nelson. Obviously, it's not a tertiary centre, so some of the very niche subspecialties aren't really available here, and those patients that require those sorts of specialties can sometimes be transferred down to a larger centre like Christchurch or up to Wellington. The majority of stuff gets managed here, to be honest, but yeah, especially some of the more complex operations and that sort of thing, may well find that those patients don't stick around, although you often do get the sort of final completion of their care when they get transferred back up after having those procedures. Tommy might disagree with me, but the small town lifestyle means sort of the nightlife might not be quite up to some people's standards, but yeah, I think sort of take that with a pinch of salt, I guess. And yeah, the Māori and Pacifica communities and as patient demographics are sort of not as represented here in Nelson, so that's something to take into account as well.
Yeah, so in terms of applying, there's a few things that you need to consider. You need to write a Nelson specific cover letter to pretty much outline some important points of why you want to come to Nelson specifically. It helps if you're interested in the outdoors or you have something else that you want to sort of come down here for. It's encouraged to come down and visit the DHB, especially if you're coming from the North Island. I went through Auckland Med School. Not too many Auckland people managed to get down here, but I just flew down for an interview last year and managed to get a job, which was pretty sick, pretty stoked. So just get in touch with Loretta to tee up a time to come down. And it's nice just to come down to Nelson for a holiday, really. So in terms of the application, you obviously you've got to have your CV, your ACE score, and get your 3 references. Same as everywhere. Helps you got a connection to the region. And yeah, it helps if your sort of references show that you can work well in a team. You're a good team player, because it's a pretty important thing down in Nelson. When you're often sort of working by yourself, your registrar might be on acutes, and sort of you have to be a bit more independent, and it's pretty good work experience, really.
Workplace culture. So things that we do as RMOs, we're quite a cohesive little unit. Go to Free House, which is a local pub. Yep, we're going tonight. Every week. We've had a wine and cheese earlier this year. There's a ball which the consultants came to last year. The regs come, physios, OTs come. So it's a real sort of hospital-wide team environment. Roz, who is one of the general surgeons, who's also a clinical supervisor, hosts a pizza night at the start of the year to welcome everyone. There's various social sports teams. There's an on-site gym and pool, which you can have access to for
$30, isn't it?
$30 for the whole year, like $1 a week.
Yeah, which comes with you can hire a trailer and a spit roast from there.
Can you? Yeah, it's a spit roast machine.
Yeah, and you know, if people are coming to Nelson, they tend to be keen on getting out and about. So there's always people that you can tee stuff up with to get involved.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so obviously Nelson's situated in the middle of what we call the golden triangle. Well, we don't actually call it that, but we call it that. So well, obviously we're blessed, as you saw in that earlier video, to have be surrounded by such an amazing natural environment. 3 national parks within this area: the Kahurangi National Park, Abel Tasman, and Nelson Lakes, and they're all sort of within like 2 to 3 hours drive. Yeah, and Queen Charlotte Track and the Margaret Sounds, which has been pretty awesome. Like just so far this year, I've managed to get out to all those places. Had a week of annual leave and managed to check out all 3 national parks. Spent a couple of nights in each, which was pretty awesome. Blessed weather all the time, really. Good fishing. Yeah, good tramping. Great.
Just a couple of photos of the
Abel Tas. How good.
Abel Tasman and various other nice spots around Nelson, Melbourne region. And that's the big sort of majority of the PGY 1 group and a couple of PGY 2s. Just one evening after work.
Yeah, pretty nice weather. It's pretty typical. It's up in the mountains. That's Nelson itself. Lovely sunset from the central New Zealand. Good spot.
And if you have any questions, feel free to get in touch with any one of us. And obviously Loretta is the main point of contact for any major questions. But yeah, we're all sort of happy for you to get in touch with us as and when you need. I think maybe question time now.
Okay, we can go with the question and answer. We only have one for now, but this is question is, as it is such a small hospital and community, is confidentiality for patients and with your own healthcare an issue?
None of us are from Nelson. A couple of the PGY ones are, and have had family members cared for by teams in the hospital. And I don't think there's been any issues. I'm not sure about anyone having own healthcare issues.
Everyone's very professional.
Yeah, I think it's sort of the same applies for anywhere really. Like most people are pretty aware of keeping confidential when you're at work and when you're operating in a clinical environment. So I think, the confidentiality of patients isn't really compromised. I haven't seen any evidence that would be the case. There's another one.
Yeah. What are the ratios for employment for Otago and Auckland graduates?
Well, I'm actually the only Auckland graduate this year, so I get a bit bullied, but it's not too bad. I don't know, Loretta, how many Auckland graduates do you sort of get applications from each year? You answer that?
I won't be able to give you the exact number, but more or less, they are almost in similar number, like 260 something. I think based on what I have got from the transcript, Auckland has like 268 and Otago, I think, was like 247. So I'm not really exact in terms of my number, but more or less in that rate, in that number, it's like within that number.
I don't think, I mean, correct me, I'd be surprised if I was wrong, but I don't imagine that the RMO unit have preference for Auckland or Otago students either way. I think as we talked about earlier, the main thing is just coming down and seeing what work environment you're going to be going into if you are going to choose it or rank it highly as a place to work. Otago students generally have more experience here just by way of the fact that many of them are TIs up here. But
if you're an Auckland student and you can come down, definitely at least tee out a Zoom interview. And if you can come down to have a look around in person. But yeah, just get in touch with Loretta and she'll be able to sort of go from there.
Okay. Another question is, how many people tend to rank Nelson first each year?
Don't know.
I don't know. I think it's usually more than there are places available.
Yeah.
And you have to rank first.
Yeah.
You have to rank Nelson first if you want to come to Nelson.
Can you also describe what's the cost of living in Nelson, just in case for the information of those who would like to, move from one region to Nelson's region?
It's pretty cheap. Like rent probably ranges between maybe I'd say high
150 to 200.
Yeah, probably 150 to 200.
125.
Yeah, I probably pay like close to 160, I think.
You save a lot on petrol because you're not commuting. That's a big
save
thing.
a lot on commuting costs. You save.
Don't buy a coffee every day.
You don't buy a coffee. You get your food paid for, obviously, and
so yeah, it's pretty expensive. It's really expensive, but otherwise it's too bad.
And you also get paid a little bit more because it's non-urban as well. So you don't feel particularly burdened by the cost of living in Nelson.
Okay. Another question here. If you don't get Nelson through A's in PGY1, is it difficult to come as PGY2?
Maybe Loretta can answer.
Yeah, I think it depends when you apply. I don't think you get into Nelson as a PGY2 in January. But if you applied and came throughout the year, maybe Q2, Q3, you would get into Nelson.
Is that of PGY1?
PGY2
Okay.
and 3 and 4. Yeah.
Another question.
There's another
What
question.
Sorry.
Oh, you go.
Okay. What category of hours do you work in Nelson? Example like A, B, C, D, E, F.
Technically all the runs are Cat D apart from the relief runs that you have to do. We're actually looking at getting some of the medical runs reviewed because they have been a bit busier than the Cat D hours account for. So yeah, might be different this year also.
Yeah, they're pretty much basically all Cat D, but except for the relief runs, which are Cat, you jump up a couple of categories.
And once they go on to, so they're on a D at the moment, once they go on to nights, they'll be on a category C.
Okay. I'd like also to know, are you conducting interviews on site or not?
Interviews.
Yeah.
Well, the selectors would prefer, if you're serious about applying to Nelson, that you come and have a visit, have a look around the hospital and have a look around the area, meet some of the house officers, have a question and answer session, and then either the RMO unit or the house officer will take you on a tour of the hospital. And then if you're serious about applying to Nelson, we can organise an interview.
Okay, is there any other thing that you can give as an advice or tip for our applicants for A's now that when they transition from being a medical student going to a full blast RMO?
Just don't be afraid to ask for help if you're not certain about something. It's no such thing as a silly question.
Yeah, the learning curve is pretty steep when you start off with. So, you know, being in a small place like Nelson and being able to ask the silly questions and having friendly people to answer them is like makes a big difference.
And if you show you're keen and you're interested in like different things like procedures and let the regs and the bosses know, then they'll be happy to teach you how to do like chest drains and lumbar punctures and the like. Yeah, so it's pretty cool.
So I think that's all that we have. There's no more further questions. Any last words from our panelists for our applicants?
Good luck with your applications.
Yeah, all the best. And to be honest, every hospital in the country is great once you get there, and you'll have a good time next year. So yeah, all the best.
Yeah. Okay. So that's it. I'd like to thank everyone, especially our panelists, Loretta as well, for taking time again for this webinar for Nelson. And I would like to wish our applicants all the best of luck in their ACE application. So in case that you have further questions that is specific to your situation or your case, then please feel free to email ACE RMO so we would be able to